Have you ever thought about what would happen if the most powerful weapons ever created were actually used? It's a scary idea, but an important one to consider. A nuclear war between two major powers like the United States and Russia wouldn't be like any war we've seen before. It would be a global catastrophe, an event that changes everything on our planet. These aren't just bigger bombs, they are planet-altering devices. The energy they release is immense, coming from the very core of atoms. Understanding this helps us understand why we must do everything we can to prevent it. It's not about winning or losing, it's about survival. Imagine our world, our home, suddenly caught in the middle of an unimaginable conflict. The very idea seems like something out of a science fiction movie, but the weapons are real. Both the United States and Russia have thousands of them, ready to be launched in minutes. A war using these weapons would mean that cities we know and love could disappear in a flash of light. The consequences would ripple outwards, affecting every single person on Earth, whether their country was involved or not. This is a global problem, a human problem. It's science, it's politics, and it's our future all rolled into one complex and frankly frightening package. The power of a nuclear weapon is truly hard to grasp. Think of the sun. A nuclear explosion is like bringing a small temporary piece of the sun down to Earth. The heat is so intense it can vaporize steel, and the light is so bright it can blind people miles away. This isn't just an explosion, it's a fundamental force of nature unleashed by humans. The science behind it is fascinating, involving the splitting of atoms, fission, or the fusing of them, fusion. But when that science is used for destruction, the results are devastating. We have to respect that power and understand the responsibility that comes with it. So why talk about something so grim? Because knowledge is power. When we understand the science and the real-world effects of nuclear weapons, we are better equipped to make choices that lead us toward a peaceful future. It's not about scaring everyone. It's about educating ourselves. It's about recognizing that our ability to create has also given us an incredible ability to destroy. By facing this uncomfortable truth, we can appreciate the importance of cooperation, diplomacy, and working together as one species on one planet. The stakes are simply too high to ignore it. Consider this a thought experiment for the survival of humankind. So how does something so terrible even start? It probably wouldn't begin with a big, sudden decision to end the world. Instead, it might start small, with a misunderstanding or a mistake. Imagine a tense political situation, maybe a conflict in a smaller country where both America and Russia have interests. One side might make a move, and the other side might see it as an attack. Computers and satellites are watching all the time, but technology can fail. A false alarm, a computer glitch that looks like an incoming missile, could trigger a response. Leaders would have only minutes to decide whether to launch their own missiles in return. In those first few moments, everything would speed up. Alarms would blare in underground bunkers. Top military officials and national leaders would be rushed to secure locations. The decision they would face is almost impossible. Do you launch your missiles and risk starting a global nuclear war? Or do you wait and risk your country being destroyed? This is often called a launch on warning policy. The pressure would be immense, and the information they have might be incomplete or wrong. A single panicked decision could set off a chain reaction that couldn't be stopped. It's a system designed for a rapid response, which makes it incredibly dangerous. Once the first missiles are launched, the other side's systems would detect them almost instantly. Then, the terrible logic of nuclear strategy would take over. The goal would be to destroy the enemy's ability to fire back. So, the first targets wouldn't just be cities. They would be missile silos, military bases, and command centers. Submarines hiding deep in the ocean would receive orders to fire their weapons. Long-range bombers, already in the air as a precaution, would head toward their targets. It would be a coordinated, all-out attack designed to overwhelm the opponent in a matter of hours or even minutes. For ordinary people, the first sign of trouble might be a piercing emergency alert on their phones or a television broadcast suddenly interrupted. There would be confusion and fear. Instructions might be to seek shelter immediately, but for most people in large cities, there would be nowhere safe to go. The time between the initial warning and the first impact would be terrifyingly short, for many less than 30 minutes. People would be scrambling, trying to contact loved ones, not knowing if they would ever see them again. The sense of helplessness would be overwhelming as they watched the sky, waiting for the unthinkable to happen. When a nuclear bomb explodes over a city, the first thing anyone would experience is an impossibly bright flash of light. It would be brighter than the sun, and anyone who looked directly at it would be instantly blinded. This is followed almost immediately by a wave of intense heat, a thermal pulse that travels at the speed of light. This pulse would be so hot that it would ignite fires for miles in every direction. Wood, paper, fabric, and even buildings would burst into flames. People caught in the open would suffer horrific burns. The city would become a giant, roaring inferno in a matter of seconds. Seconds after the flash, the blast wave would arrive. This is a wall of compressed air moving faster than the speed of sound. It would be powerful enough to demolish almost any building. Skyscrapers would crumble, houses would be flattened, and bridges would collapse. The wind itself would be strong enough to throw people and cars through the air like toys. At the center of the explosion, the ground zero, everything would simply be vaporized, turned into dust. Farther out, the destruction would be catastrophic, creating a landscape of rubble and ruin where a vibrant city once stood. But the danger doesn't stop there. The explosion would suck up dirt, dust, and debris, mixing it with radioactive particles and carrying it high into the atmosphere. This is called fallout. This radioactive cloud would be carried by the wind for hundreds or even thousands of miles. As it drifts, the radioactive particles would fall back to Earth like a fine, invisible, and deadly sand. It would contaminate everything: soil, water, plants, and animals. Anyone exposed to it would get radiation sickness, a terrible illness that damages the body's cells, leading to a slow and painful death. For the survivors on the ground, the world would become a nightmare. They would be surrounded by darkness, as massive clouds of smoke and dust from the burning cities would block out the sun. There would be no electricity, no running water, and no way to communicate with the outside world. Hospitals would be gone, and there would be no one to help the injured. People would be forced to navigate a destroyed landscape, constantly in danger from collapsing structures, raging fires, and the silent, invisible threat of radiation. It would be a struggle for survival in a world that had been completely broken. The effects of a nuclear war between America and Russia wouldn't be limited to just those two countries. The radioactive fallout would be carried by global wind patterns, poisoning the land and water in countries that had nothing to do with the conflict. Nations in Europe and Asia would be particularly hard hit, but the most devastating global effect would be something called nuclear winter. The massive fires in all the destroyed cities would create so much smoke and soot that it would rise high into the atmosphere, forming a thick layer that would envelop the entire planet. This layer of soot would block sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. With less sunlight, global temperatures would plummet. It would become cold, even in the summer. This sudden and drastic climate change would cause crops to fail all over the world. Without the ability to grow food, global famine would set in. The world's food supply chains would collapse. Billions of people, far from the original explosions, could starve to death. It would be a global catastrophe caused by a war fought by only two nations, proving that in a nuclear war, there are no bystanders. Everyone on Earth would feel the consequences. In this new, cold, and dark world, society as we know it would cease to exist. Governments would collapse. There would be no law and order. The complex systems that support our modern lives, trade, manufacturing, technology, would all be gone. Survivors would face a daily struggle for the most basic necessities: clean water, uncontaminated food, and shelter from the cold and radiation. The very fabric of human civilization would unravel. This is why a nuclear war is often described as unwinnable. Even if one side won in a military sense, the world they would inherit would be a poisoned, dying husk. This is why preventing such a war is one of the most important things we can do. It's not just about politics. It's about preserving our planet and our future. Science tells us exactly how devastating these weapons are, and it's our job to listen. We must support peace, encourage communication between nations, and work to reduce and eventually eliminate these weapons. Our planet is a beautiful and interconnected system, and we are all a part of it. A nuclear war would be the ultimate act of self-destruction. By choosing cooperation over conflict, we choose life. We choose a future where we can continue to explore, learn, and build a better world together.